Working. Let's see. I think it might be. I think that mic might have been off. Let me go ahead and rerun through that. Anyways, just wanted to let everybody know what we're doing here today. We have this Dell Optiplex, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead and we're going to fry it using this USB killer. Yeah, you should be able to hear something now, Ethan. Using this USB killer actually sends an impulse of electricity through the system. It'll completely fry it, and then once that goes ahead and fries the system, as I was trying to say, I have a completely spare working Dell Optiplex that we're going to go ahead and use to see if we can get the system back up and working pretty quick. It shouldn't be too big of a deal. I'm assuming it's only going to take down the motherboard, but I was really curious to see if it would take down any other components, and because we have an exact copy of the system, it'll make it nice and easy to go ahead and swap between everything. So go ahead and stay tuned, and we'll get started in just a second. And just so everybody knows, the USB killer that I've talked about in a recent video, it's actually a pretty cool device for testing ESD protection. On most newer devices, this won't work 100% of the time, but on an older Optiplex system like this, it should take it down nearly instantly. So what we'll do is we'll fire the system up, we'll go ahead and have it running in Windows, we'll plug it in and let it fry the system, and once it's done, we'll go ahead and try to revive it. So let me go ahead and get that pulled up. Give me 1 second. I think I have it on this screen here. How many watts is the output? I'm actually not sure. It's I know it sends a large amount of DC current right onto the 2 pins on the USB connection. I'm not 100% sure how much power it sends, but they do have a testing device that uses like a LED indicator, and it basically it kind of supposed to show the simulation of it. And what it does is it kind of almost flashes on and off a bunch of times, which is basically sending a bunch of power on and off, on and off, on and off. All right, everyone. So let's go ahead, and I think this system, I think I need a keyboard and mouse for. Let me go ahead and grab that. I'm using my other keyboard and mouse right now for something else. I think this is plugged in this system back here. All right, so let's plug this USB in. This is just a normal USB dongle, and we should be able to get this system up. So we can see we got a working Windows 10 system on this Dell Optiplex. And what we'll do is as we plug that in, we'll go ahead and see what happens. So everybody, we'll start this and just, I Googled it. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of power. It's definitely pretty intense. And it comes in a pretty interesting package. Let me go ahead and switch you guys down to my top view. Let's try this. Get my, let's see, where is my mouse? There it is. So if we go down to the top view, it actually comes in a pretty interesting package. So what comes in it is you basically get the USB killer itself, you get an adapter for USB Type-C, and then this little tiny adapter for micro USB, and then it even has a lightning adapter, so it actually could fry an iPhone or some older iPads. Yeah, this thing will definitely be gone in a second. And then this is that little tester module that I was talking about. And it does flash on and off a bunch of times, kind of simulating what it actually does. So I might make another video on that specifically just to show off what it actually does. But this is the actual USB kill stick. And what's going to happen is once we plug this in, within seconds the system should be gone. It should just basically, we'll hear a click and boom, that system should be done. So we'll probably do it on one of the, we can try first with one of the front USB ports. If that doesn't take it down, we'll go on the rear and it should take it down right away. So let me go ahead and switch you guys back over to the main view, and we'll get everything prepared to go ahead and get that going. So let me move my keyboard and mouse out of the way. Yeah, we'll see how a lot of a, yeah, so we have YouTube going as well. So we have YouTube and TikTok both streaming right now. So you guys can check out on either platform, just to let you guys know. This is actually our first time doing the dual stream, so we'll see how well that works. And if it works out, we'll probably do this more often. So we got actually we're going to do the front port first. We're going to unplug our mouse and keyboard because I don't really want to fry that if that happens to be taken down. We got our monitor, we got power to the system, and we got our USB kill stick. Let's go ahead and test it out, guys. Let's go ahead and see what happens. So, all right, we're going to do this first USB port. You guys ready? Yeah, maybe we can do it on Twitch too. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, are you guys ready? We're going to go ahead and plug this in. 3, 2, 1. Wait. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard that pop, but that system just turned right off. And you can see that this thing went red. All right. Let's see. Let's see if it'll power back up. Sometimes these systems will have current protection on these front USB ports. And nothing right there. There's nothing. Okay. All right, we got no power. Let's go ahead and pull the power plug. Plug it back in. Oh, and we're getting nothing. Nothing at all right there. It basically will end up causing damage to something on the motherboard or the power supply. More likely not the motherboard. It'll usually blow some kind of capacitor or affect something on the board itself. But we'll be able to find that out once we take everything apart. And that's what we're going to be doing for this stream. So yeah, we're not getting anything. And one of the big indicators is on these older Dell units, they had a really cool feature. Is that whenever you plugged in your system, you would have a green LED indicating that there's power being received by the system. That means that power supply is more likely than not dead. We'll see in a second, but we might have taken that down because this normally will light up right here. I believe even if the system has no power, it's not receiving anything on the motherboard. Yeah, so basically it's instant. As soon as that thing turns on, it's gone. So let's go ahead, let's get the system taken apart, and let's see if maybe we can figure out what's going on. All right, so let me flip you guys down over to the top view, and we'll go ahead and start taking this thing apart, and we'll see if we can get the system back up and running. All right, opening this system up. This was an old office machine that somebody had upgraded at some point. But yeah, this is just a spare system I had, so we're not doing, this is really just for science and kind of figuring out what exactly is going on with it. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to go ahead and see if there's anything obvious that looks damaged, because that's really my first big step, is just seeing if there's anything. I'm assuming this USB controller is definitely going to be gone. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. But basically, this USB controller that does those front USB ports is probably more likely than gone, more likely than not gone. And it's actually a big connector because it has USB audio, a bunch of other things on those 4 front USB ports. I believe it also has mic and headphone right there. So we'll do that. I have a power supply tester right here, which will allow us to go ahead and just test the power supply. That will allow us to know exactly maybe if we're dealing with a bad power supply, bad motherboard, or a couple other things. So first thing I want to try, just because it was related to that those front USBs, I want to go ahead and pull that connector out of the motherboard. This way we can go ahead and see if the system will actually power up, and if it does, we can kind of go from there. All right, so basically what we can do is we can unplug this connector, big old connector at the bottom, and we can go ahead and power the system and see if we get anything at all, because this may be related to that, or it could be a little bit further into the system, which we'll find out in just a second. And we're still not getting anything. So that's definitely all right. I really appreciate it. So what we have here now is we're still not getting any power to the system. I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and test this power supply just to see if it's fried. Because if it is fried, we're going to have to swap that out either way. So we'll go ahead and start that process sooner than later. So to do that, we're going to use our Thermaltake Doctor Power 2. This is one of my favorite testing devices. I use it all the time. Basically, you can plug in your 24-pin and then an 8-pin or a 4-pin and also your PCIe cables, power on your system without having everything plugged in, and actually see if that power supply is working or not. It'll tell you the voltage readings and it'll allow you to make sure that everything's working properly. So how we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and unplug this 24-pin. we'll plug that into the back of the Dr. Power unit. Let's go ahead and flip that around. Basically just pops in like that. And then we're going to pull out the 4-pin. And then the 4-pin should line up on this guy right here. And there we go. So now we should be able to turn on the power supply without anything else to go ahead and see if that power supply is what actually blew up. Yeah, so let's go ahead and let's power this thing up. All right, we got a good sign. All right, we got power supply might be all right because we got the voltage and everything looks good on that. Hopefully you guys, let me see if you guys can, I can't bring it too much closer. Let's try this real quick. But basically, it's kind of hard to see, but everything is good. It would go red if it was bad. And let me keep going. Yeah, and the CPU power input looks good as well, which means that's powering up properly. So we can go ahead and go from here and proceed. So let's go ahead and unplug our power, which means we're more likely not dealing with a bad power supply. We're going to probably be moving on to motherboard components at this point, which I'm assuming is likely what's fried. And we'll go ahead and inspect that board afterwards. So, and if you guys have any tech questions while you're here, go ahead and ask them, throw them in the chat. I'm going to be more than happy to answer them as I'm going through the process here of figuring out what happens to the system when you fry it with a USB killer. So, we're going to go ahead and get this power supply tester out of the way. At least we know that the power supply is in working condition at this point. And then we'll go ahead and pop the power back in, because we're going to go ahead and work with a couple other things. So let's first just, we can do RAM because that's nice and easy to work with early on with getting that just out. We're going to go down to 1 stick. And then we'll pop all of them out except for 1 stick. And we'll go ahead and just see if maybe it took down any of the RAM modules. I doubt it, but I want to go ahead and test everything out ahead of time. So, all right, we're down to 1 RAM module. Let's just see if it recognizes anything on that board. And still nothing. It's almost like that board is completely unrecognized at this point to the power connectors. So let's go ahead and see, where do we have our front connectors? Looks like the power button runs up top, so that looks fine. I don't see any visible damage just from what I can see right away, but we'll keep looking. All right, so next up, we can go ahead and let's go ahead and just take everything out that is unnecessary for this system. So we'll keep 1 stick of RAM in the system. I'm assuming that's not going to cause anything at this point. We can disconnect fans and everything else that is pretty much not required. So we can unplug anything like SATA devices, stuff like that. Don't absolutely need those right now. So we'll go ahead and pop that out. And we got 1 more here. All right, so that's out of the way. And let's go ahead and just unplug the power on these SATA devices as well. This way we can go ahead and see if there's anything that will bring the system back up. So let's take a look. See, we're still not getting that green LED that I'm looking for. So back here, we should be getting a green LED indicator, basically showing us that, that there is a USB, or not a USB, but there is a power connection on the board. So I already disconnected the front USB connector. That's this big one right here. And that did not make a difference. So I'm assuming it went a little further onto the board. And we know the power supply is good. We've already tested that. We'll go ahead and pull our RAM. I'm going to assume we're going to be down to probably a bad board. And hopefully that's all that it damaged. We can even try swapping that CPU early on before we get too far. So let's see if there's anything else I can unplug. I got everything unplugged that's not absolutely necessary. We got like that speaker, and those cables are not needed to go ahead and power the system up. Still nothing from that power supply. Oh, wait. We got something there. With a rear. That's interesting. The rear button is actually turning it on. Java Tech, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. This is interesting. So the rear button on the power supply is turning on the fan. Let me try something. Let's go ahead and put some RAM back in this system. Maybe it was one of those cables that went down. Let's go ahead and see. That might also just be a testing button for that power supply, like a self-tester. So let's go ahead and try that real quick. Because it could be that front button is dead, but yeah, it's not turning on. Yeah, it's all pretty much nothing right there. Unless I turn that on like that. I have to hold down the button or it won't stay on, which I'm assuming is just sending power, which is forcing the power supply to turn on. So I'm assuming that's not going to solve the issue. So let's go ahead and keep on moving through this. So we have a couple other things we can try. So from here, I'd probably like to just see if maybe it's CPU related, because we have a spare CPU. We'll go ahead and swap that out. See if the system happens to turn back on. And if it doesn't, we'll go ahead and proceed from there. So let's go ahead, let's grab our other system, and we'll go ahead and pull that CPU out of the system and go ahead and move it over. So give me 1 second. Let me slide this system forward. Go ahead and slide it up there. And we'll grab our secondary system. And let's flip this guy over right here. And if we go ahead and pop this cover off, we can go ahead and see it's basically the exact same system. So what we'll do, let's unscrew this heatsink. And we're going to go ahead and swap out the CPU, just see if maybe that's related to the issue that's going on. And if not, we'll go ahead and pull the entire board. And then we can see if the original CPU is still working. So we're currently not taking any PCs being sent in. We'd love to go ahead and start doing that for you guys, but not at this time. We're not accepting any send-ins. But if we do change that, I will let you know. So this CPU, look how bad that thermal paste is. It is absolutely terrible. All right, let's go ahead and let's wipe off this thermal paste. Pull this CPU out, get it out of the way. So we're going to use some isopropyl alcohol, and then I use these shop towels. Usually work very good for removing thermal paste, even in some of these tough jobs where you got really old dried up thermal paste on these CPUs. Let's go ahead and get that all off, or at least enough of it for testing. All right, and then we'll go ahead and push down on this lever right here, pull up the cover, and we can go ahead and just pull this CPU right out, and we'll set it off to the side. Honestly, these CPUs are pretty resilient as long as they're on a anti-static surface. So we got a i5 2500. Let's set that off to the side. And we'll go ahead and throw this thing off to the side as well. Move that old cooler. And let's go ahead and move back to our dead system and see if we can go ahead and revive it. All right, so we can go ahead and pull our cooler off. I think we're just missing one more screw. All right, let's go ahead and pull that cooler off. We'll get a little more isopropyl alcohol in our shop towel. And we'll go ahead and wipe that thermal paste right off. That CPU, we'll go ahead and see if this one is possibly dead. It's just one thing I wanted to try before swapping that motherboard out. Had to do this today. I found out my motherboard was dead. Yeah, that's always not a fun day when your motherboard's dead, because it's definitely the one thing that's the most pain to swap out on any computer that's already working. Just because you got to take everything out of your PC for the most part, depending on the case. So we're gonna go ahead. This one's a 2400. What do we have on this one? So I think the one had a 2500, and this one is a i5 2400. So just barely different spec, not a big deal. So our 2400 was our original, and we're going to swap it out for this 2500, which is fully compatible with this motherboard. All right, let's go ahead, put that in place. Let's go ahead and throw, actually we need to clean this off a little bit. Do you do monitor screen repairs? I don't do monitor screen repairs. Honestly, if it was viable to do, I would do it. But for the most part, monitors are not something that makes sense to repair. It's just, it's just not viable for like a business standpoint, because monitors are honestly at a price point where most of the time it doesn't make sense to repair them. And there's not a supply of parts like there are for computers. This thermal paste is so dried up on this thing. It's absolutely terrible. Might need to even drench it with some isopropyl alcohol and then kind of scrub it off. See if we can get a little bit more of it off before we go ahead and just throw some other thermal paste on. All right, that's much better. I got some Arctic MX6 we're going to throw on, and we're going to just put that right on just a dot on the center, and we'll see if this swapped CPU will take care of the issue caused by the USB killer. So let's go ahead, screw this guy in, pull that in, and then we got this one. One more right here. And another one here. Tighten this. Perfect. Let's plug that in. And let's see if we get any power. Right now we're down to one stick of memory. Just go ahead and be safe. And let's just see if we get any indication of power. So nothing there. One thing I did want to try was the front panel connector. See if we can short the front panel connector and see if that will turn the system on using a screwdriver. So it should be probably one of these sets, and nothing. So it looks like we probably have a dead motherboard. Yeah, a larger motherboard, so I had to go up in case size. Yeah. That's not, especially got to change cases. That is not a fun day. It doesn't sound like it. Yeah, I've had to do that a couple times with some personal systems in the shop, and it's always a pain. So looks like we're gonna have to swap out this board. That looks like to be the issue. So we'll go ahead, pull this board out, and then we'll go ahead and pull the other board out of the other case, put everything in, and we'll see if everything happens to work. So let's go ahead and pull this system out, and shouldn't be too hard. We're just gonna have to get everything unplugged, and once that's out, shouldn't be a big deal. So let's go ahead and grab that 4-pin cable. We'll grab our 24-pin cable, our CPU. This is a little indicator if your door is closed, which is kind of interesting on some of these old Dell systems. They have like these, especially some of the Dell servers, they wouldn't turn on. How long have I been building computers? About almost 9 years now. But the this little button right here on some older Dell servers, as well as some of these Dell systems, you'll actually not be able to turn on the system if you don't have that thing plugged, if you don't have that thing pushed down. So it's something I found out a long time ago that I always thought was kind of interesting how they were able to put that in place. So let's go ahead and pull this motherboard out. All right, we got one screw. It should be about 2. Do you think you can get more devices around your shop to use the USB? Yeah, I got plenty. If we want to do more of this stuff and you guys like it, I am more than happy to do some more demonstration videos with it, because I always have tons of spare computers that come in from basically what happens is I have a lot of business clients, and when they upgrade their systems, they hand them off to me. We take care of all the data deletion, and then once the data is deleted and everything, we'll go ahead and recycle the hardware. Depending on the hardware, we'll have a couple different ways we'll go about it. The drives and stuff like that never get reused, but things like sometimes memory, CPUs, graphics cards, stuff like that. Case components we'll reuse sometimes, depending on the circumstance. You know, it all depends. So let's go ahead and just slide this board out. All right. Should come out. Really tight fit on this board. Get out in here. Because it's that 24 pin that's holding it kind of in place. What do we got stuck on now? Getting stuck on something. Oh, it's a front panel connectors. Yeah, it's kind of a weird board to get out. There we go. I think we're almost there. All right, we're gonna pop this up, and then, wow, they're making this really challenging to get out. Don't really want to remove this rear fan if I don't have to. Let's see if we go down. And, wow, they are not making this easy. Okay, let's try. You can pull. I guess we can pull the back fan out if we need to. On this one, yeah, you could probably upgrade the power supply, but it's not going to be necessary for what we're doing. We already tested the power supply, it's working. So I don't think that's causing any issues with what's going on after the system was fried. So we'll go ahead and pull these little tabs out for the rear fan. These things are always a pain, and we'll probably just replace these with screws later, or we might even not put this fan back in just to see if we can get the system working. Well, let's move this fan out of the way. It's got a definitely proprietary connector right here. Even though it is all 4 pins, it's actually like a 5-pin connector. It's kind of ridiculous, not necessary. I don't know why companies think they need to make those connectors proprietary. It just makes repairing PCs so much harder. So, all right, we got the system out here. And we still have our original CPU over here. So we're going to keep that. And let me go ahead and move this motherboard off to the side. And I'm just going to take a look real quick. So the USB input came in on this side down here. I'm looking right now for anything obviously damaged. I don't see too much. Everything looks pretty good. I might have to get this out under something under a microscope or something later. But yeah, this is definitely nothing is really obviously damaged from what I can see. We can definitely look at this later. Maybe I'll post a picture of it and you guys can go ahead and inspect it for me and if you guys want to. Let me go ahead and we'll place this down off to the side. And then let's get this other system. And we'll pull the motherboard out of that and I'll go from there. All right, so the other system. All right, so the other computers, RAM we're gonna have to take out first. And if you guys are just joining now, basically what we did is we took a USB killer, which is basically a high voltage device that sends a current over the USB signal, and it actually fries the computer almost instantly. If you guys watched the replay, it went just like that. It was basically just instant, the system went down. And I have another video on the channel on both YouTube and TikTok if you guys are interested to learn more about that. So let's go ahead and pull that RAM, move it off to the side, and then we'll go ahead and pull the power cables, pull the rear fan cable. Just because we're going to probably be fighting it a little bit, we're going to go ahead and throw this CPU in the socket just to protect it. One thing is if you're ever transporting a motherboard, always try to protect that socket whenever you can. So this is the original CPU. There we go. Can you upgrade the power supply? Yeah, so the power supply, in this unit, you might be able to upgrade if you can get something within the same size. Really the main thing is going to be the dimensions for the mounting hardware because it does use this little locking tab. That's usually the main issue with Dells as well as like HPs. Their systems typically have some proprietary like length to the power supplies, which ends up causing some issues, to go ahead and actually get you know, a replacement. All right, so we are pull these motherboard. There we go. Got all those out. We'll get the front panel out. I'm going to be curious to see if those front USBs happen to work now that we have now that we're swapping that motherboard over, because that will be something interesting to see if it just went straight to the board, or if in this instance the system actually took down the USB ports first and then went to the board. So we'll go ahead, we'll see that in probably just a minute once we get the system taken apart. All right, hopefully we won't take this. I'm thinking I might be able to do it without taking the fan out, but we'll see, because we don't have that heat sink on there. All right, we got the last screw. All right, so we got all the screws out right now. We're gonna go ahead and see if we can get this board out. And I think we're gonna take this rear fan out. It was much easier to do it once we did that. Go ahead and keep that. Ooh, that thing snapped right off. So old, the rubber is just falling apart on these old, you know, these fan mounts that were often used for noise isolation. They're actually kind of cool, but they definitely fall apart. This is what I'm talking about right here. They're basically like rubber isolation mounts. They do work really good for noise reduction, but they are limited because they do fall apart and they have some other issues, which is why you don't see them in, why screws are still so common. And a lot of times the isolation pads are now just placed on the corners of the fans, especially on high-end fans. All right, so we got this board out. Let's go ahead and place it on the table. And now we're gonna go ahead and swap it over to our other computer. This is the one that was fried. So we got a new board. We're gonna pop this thing in. Let's pull this cable up, out of the way. Get all these other small proprietary cables out of the way as well. And then we'll go ahead and just lower the system into place. Slide it into the I/O shield. Got a couple things that are sitting right underneath right now, so I'm just trying to pop up. And as soon as we can get those out of the way, there we go. Perfect. All right, we're in. All right, let's go ahead, put these screws back, and then we'll go ahead and go from there. Yeah, so there's a bunch of other USB devices I'd like to test out with the USB killer. I'd like to get in, I think I have a spare iPhone that we might be able to go ahead and fry, that I happen to have around. And maybe we can go ahead and see how that works, and see what kind of damage it does. So that might be something in the future for a video, so stay tuned for that. All right. Any other tech questions or anything like that, feel free just to go ahead and throw them in the chat, and we'll keep working. All right, put this screw in here. Another screw down here. Perfect. All right. One more up here. And I think we get all the screws in. And it's just good enough to go ahead and get things reconnected. So we'll actually connect a bunch of stuff before we get that fan plugged back in, or in the CPU cooler, just because it kind of gets in the way. We're going to boot with all sticks of memory, just to go ahead, and I think we have 2 sets. So we'll do these ones on the white, the crucials, and then I think we have 2 sticks of Samsung memory as well, because these systems were upgraded previously before being replaced with some additional memory and a Samsung solid state drive. So I believe those are an 860 drive. So that kind of gives you an idea of when it was replaced, because it would have been whenever that was like a new drive. So a few years back. All right. So we got that. We'll go ahead and throw in 24-pin power. We'll get our front panel connector plugged in down there. I was thinking of turning a Optiplex into a gaming computer. Is that a good start? If you have one for free and you didn't have to pay for it, it's a great start. That's going to always be my big suggestion there. If you can find an old workstation, it's a great start. If you can find one with a GPU already in it, that's even better. But a lot of times they have, because these are workstations, they typically have decent power supplies. The other one had a better power supply, the other Optiplex I just pulled this board from. So it had a little more power. That's one thing you want to look for. But you can replace a lot of the components in these, except, just be cautious because you're going to be limited in some sizings for graphics card, as well as especially some of the newer technologies you won't be able to access as well. Is that an HP Elite desktop? No, it's not. It's a Dell Optiplex. Very similar in size though. Yeah, so let's go ahead and let's get these plugged in. So I don't think we actually aren't using that hard drive, so we don't need to worry about that, but we can get all these other little connectors. So I believe one of these is for the speaker down here. Yeah, so this is definitely, it's an old system. If if you've seen Dell Optiplex, I believe these are 2nd gen or 3rd gen. Yeah, they were 2nd gen CPUs. So that's like 11 years ago. So it's definitely a good indication of how old these computers are. Why I felt comfortable frying one for a video. So let's go ahead and let's pull this. Yeah, we'll put the big connector in. So this was, actually, we're going to turn it on without this USB panel first, just because I want to make sure that's working. So let's grab our CPU cooler. Let's throw a little bit of thermal paste on the CPU. Just need to be able to turn it on. We're not doing any type of long form testing. So we'll go ahead and throw some thermal paste on. We're using some Arctic MX6. And as you guys have seen, I pretty much use that all the time for my thermal compound. All right. And we'll go ahead and get these screwed in place. Let's go with corners first. Perfect. Perfect. All right, that's good enough. Might be a little, probably could tighten this a little bit more. So do you think I'd be better off using a small profile GPU? So yeah, just a limited profile. You don't have to go like super small profile on these systems because they actually do have a decent amount of space. I'd probably say something like a 2-fan card should fit. So something like this size, which is like a 750 Ti. Not this card exactly, but just the same kind of relative size. Would be what I would put in the system if it was mine. So let's go ahead and see. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the specs off the top of my head. I'm gonna assume the 2400 might be better. You might have to check some like benchmarks online, but no, I don't know off the top of my head, just because those CPUs are so old at this point. It's kind of hard to compare, especially depending on what you're looking for. The nice thing about that 8.8 is you don't need a graphics card right away to have some decent performance. All right, hey, okay, let's go ahead and see. You guys got missed a couple things. All right, we got a couple other questions from people. So basically, I bought a 7900 XTX, and I only have an 850 watt PSU. Will that be enough, or do I need a better power supply? So that's probably pretty close. It really depends on your CPU at that point. 850 should be like kind of like the minimum, but I would probably go a little higher to be safe. You don't want to be maxing out your power supply ever. That's usually not a good idea. You will end up, it's very easy for the system, if you get some kind of spike, to cause the system to crash. But I wouldn't be too worried about it. I would maybe go to 1,000 if you can, but it depends on how much power you're pulling. So it looks like, yeah, I mean, that's basically, yeah. If you have a power hungry, great point. If you have a power hungry CPU paired with that, I would go ahead and consider it. So, all right, guys. So we have this PC. We swapped out the board. Let's go ahead and see if we turn this thing on. Hey, it's powering up. Powered up. All right. Can we get the... Let's grab a different power. Well, I think this board, I think I had you working with VGA. I don't remember if this board had a working HDMI. So let's go ahead and just grab a VGA cable. But it is powering up, which is a great sign. Let me go ahead and plug this guy in. The VGA cable right here. All right, we got VGA. So it might be that we just had a failed motherboard from the USB killer. All right, let's see. Let me flip you guys to the main camera. All right, so we got the system up and running. And if we just switch inputs on here, let's go up to VGA. Do we got anything? No output so far. We got the fan running. Power LED indicators on. All right, let's try restarting the system. See if this thing will turn on now. All right, we got the power. Let's repower it up. All right, fan's on. Power light is on up front. And let's give it a second, see if it loads up. All right, fans are ramping up. These systems do take a second to turn on, so we'll see. Yeah, 1,000 watts would be good for that circumstance. Come on. Everything else is turning on. We're not getting any beeping. We have a speaker plugged in, so it should beep if there's something wrong. Those USB ports are still not plugged in to be safe. We can try swapping the RAM if we need to. Let's go ahead and try that. Let's pull these 2 extra sticks out first. Let's try this, move these. Yeah, so I mean, if you're going between those two, I mean, if you have both, it may be worth considering to try putting that 2400. They're both about the same tier. I don't think you're going to see a drastic improvement in performance either circumstance, in either way. So I wouldn't be too worried about either direction you decide to go. Yes, the PC did work before. So basically, we took the PC, plugged in the USB killer, killed it. Once the system was down, we went ahead and we're trying to get the system back up right now. So we just swapped the board, and we're still not getting anything. And this board did work. We did have this board did work on this other computer. So We'll go ahead and see if this gets the system up and running. If not, we'll swap the memory next probably. So let me, yeah, it's still not turning on. I know the power supply was working because we did a power supply test. Let's just swap over to the memory from this motherboard that was originally this motherboard was using. So we'll go 1. Swap this stick in first. Slot 1. Yeah, I'm trying to revive this one right now. That's what we're doing. The CPU could technically be dead. It could have gone down with the board. That would probably be my next thing we test afterwards. We already tried the other CPU in this board, and it didn't make a difference. So that's why I was pretty certain it was going to be at least a board issue. And if it's still not working after that, we'll go ahead and pull that CPU, because I do have that accessible to me, which I'm fortunate to have available. All right, and then we got one more stick here. All right, let's try it. Yeah, when you do have a bad CPU, one of the big concerns you have, yeah, we'll try going back to 1 stick of RAM. And we can try the CMOS battery. I mean, the thing is, this board works. We do know that. This board is a working board from another system, so it should work. If this doesn't work, we're probably talking about CPU issue. You know, it could be a memory issue. I just really doubt it, and we're pretty certain on everything else from all the previous testing. It might have an issue with where that display port is sitting. Oh, that didn't sit right. So we might have to readjust that motherboard. But let's try the other CPU, or 1 stick of memory first, and then we'll do the other CPU, and then we'll kind of go from that. Yeah, wire BIOS update's not good to do. They are risky. Sometimes when you have especially on cheaper motherboards, if the BIOS update does fail, you can brick your board. Unless you have something like Java just said, unless you have something that, like a Q flash button that allows you to manually do it afterwards. Let's go ahead and see. Yeah, we're gonna try it. Let's try it right now. We'll go to 1 stick of memory right here. And we'll go down to just 1, 2, 3. Pop all these out. So that's good memory too. That's from a working system. And let's take a look. Do doubt that. Let me see, do I have any spare CMOS? I do have spare CMOS batteries if needed. So we can. Yeah, we're still not getting, it's sending no signal out on the display side. I messed up with the I/O panel. The thing sat down a little too far, so I might actually have to adjust that. So let me just unscrew things and I'll readjust that. And I want to go ahead and make sure it's not that for some reason this VGA was never used. But we'll go ahead and see. Let's try this real quick. So we're going to go ahead and let's pull this. I don't think this is the case, but we're going to try it just to be safe. So let's go ahead. Let's just lift this motherboard up a hair so I can reseat it on the I/O panel. Just because what can happen is on old I/O panels like this, you can have where there's kind of like a setting point. And if it's not perfectly there, you can get where some of the ports are inaccessible, which is kind of what just happened. And which is why I absolutely love newer motherboards today where the IO shield is was just built in. Makes things way easier. What was my thoughts on the? I think I got something in the way of seeing what you have. 8 gigabyte RTX 4. I think it has to be at the right price. To be completely honest, at the RTX 4060 8 gigabyte, do you think it's kind of? I don't know. I don't like them. I don't like how they marketed it, trying to sell people that it's the same GPU as this other RTX 4060 that's going to have probably 25% better performance or something like that. So it does make me a little frustrated, especially because I'm going to end up having people call me saying, hey, why am I not getting the performance that I'm seeing in these videos? So if you, so at this point right now, I probably would say the 3060 Ti is a better option. Even like a 3060, if you can get them cheap enough, if it's under the price, maybe a good fit. I really do need to get a RTX 4060 8GB in for testing. I'm working with some manufacturers to get one in to go ahead and allow us to do some benchmarks as well as throw it in some builds. Yeah, the CPU might be dead. Yeah, we can also try GPU for video. But yeah, so I probably go, like you said, probably 3060 Ti over the 4060 8GB. Or just wait till the 16 gigabyte 4060's out, because that's going to be a really good card. The 4060 Ti, that's the 16 gigabyte. But that's the one I will probably be buying personally if I don't have one sent out to me for a review, either for builds or for whatever I end up doing with it. But that's kind of where I would put my money if I was going to buy latest generation hardware. All right, let's see if the system, if we get anything. All right, we're 1 stick of memory. And we're going to go to display port. Let me see what we got. Try turning a Dell XPS 210 into an emulation machine. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Hey, there we go. I guess it was dead VGA. System's firing up. All right, now we got to test. We got to test a few things out. Now we got to plug everything back in, and then we got to go ahead, test that memory, make sure the memory's working, and we can go from there. All right, Windows recovery, I don't really care. It's because I've turned it off a bunch of times. All right, cool. So that's why that wasn't working. So let's plug in the original memory. Then we'll plug in, just make sure that works, and then we'll start plugging in the rest of our devices and peripherals. Let's see what else you guys say. Have you ever tried M.2 to M.2 to the eGPUs? Yeah, I have a whole like video series on it. There's some shorts and some TikTok short form content videos on that where I showed that off. It does actually work better than you would think. I wouldn't recommend it. I literally have a laptop back there that's set up with one that I just haven't. I wanted to do some further testing with it. We just haven't had the time to. I wanted to go ahead and make like a full long form piece of content talking about it. Either that or do like kind of like a live stream like this and then go ahead and have it hooked up with a capture card so then you guys could see exactly what I'm seeing. Because I think that would be kind of like a fun video to make or, stream to make too. So let's go ahead and pop these memory sticks in. Perfect. All right, let's power up. Let's see if we get the system to turn on. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy it's working. It's always good. There we go. Perfect. Just mad that we have the door open and we have a bunch of other things. Cool. All right, the system is working again. Now we got to plug in and see if those front USB ports work, because that will be curious to see if it just went straight through or if it killed that little PCB that controls those. So let's try it. All right, let's take the system down. Let's plug in our little front panel connector here. I'm sorry, I didn't see the last part. I have something actually covering that monitor that I'm reading, and so the Oculink. I'm not. Yeah, I did a. Maybe it's a different connector than what I was talking about. What PC are you building or fixing? So we are actually fixing a computer that we destroyed on stream. So we actually took a USB killer and we placed it against this Dell Optiplex, and we basically fried it. And then we went ahead and took a spare one, tore it apart, and go ahead and get this one fixed. Just kind of for fun. Kind of wanted to see what was happening with it, and it ended up having, causing a bad motherboard to occur. We're gonna go ahead and see if these front USB ports are dead or not by go ahead and just turning the system back on. You can also plug in things like the DVD drive and a couple other things. Well, we have it here. I actually never had that hard drive plugged in. That was just sitting in there. So let's go ahead and this guy plugged in up here. Yeah. Yeah. I got a R7 2700X. I want to use. How do you think it holds up at today's triple? I think a 2700X is still going to be fine for most AAA titles, as long as you pair it with a good GPU, because the GPU is going to pull most of the weight. I mean, you're still, if you get a decent overclock on your 2700X, it'll still perform quite well. So that might be something. Yeah, hey, we finally got it working. So, and we'll have a full VOD you can watch on YouTube if you do want to catch up afterwards. The mod mat the mat I have, it's the Mod Mat Extreme. I think I have a link in it in my bio on TikTok if you want to check it out. If not, I will go ahead and post one in the VOD later on, so you can go ahead and take a look at that. It's from a company called modrite.com. You can buy it from their website as well, or you can buy it through Amazon. Can I get an RTX? I mean, you can get an RTX 4060 Ti if you have a 2400. You will be limited by your 2400. Oculink is detachable, so it gives you a chance to cut a hole in the bottom of the panel. Oh, that's cool. Maybe let me look into that. I might have to, or send me a DM on Instagram or something, because I want to take a look at that. Yeah, I mean, building a PC is a little bit easier than dealing with that, but it could make for some good content. So, all right, we got the connector back in, so we got the front USB ports plugged in. Let's go ahead and fire this thing up, see if it works, and then let me grab a USB device that I'm okay dying, and we'll see if that recognizes it. So let's plug this guy back in. Maybe we'll go like this. Here we go. All right. Let's see if these front ports work. So I put it in this port here, which I believe is the first one. So let's go ahead and see if this port actually still works. Hey, that's a good sign. Hey, recognized. Huh. That is pretty crazy. Which means it didn't even damage. I'm pretty sure that was the one I used. That worked. That one's not working. Oh, it didn't have them plugged in all the way. Yeah, that one worked. That is crazy. So it ended up not even taking down our front USBs. So that means whatever happened when it sent that current, all it did was send directly through that USB into that front panel connector, which is probably where it's damaged. It's probably wherever the power is received in there. It's got to be right there. So that must be what caused it. So it looks like we got the system back up and running. We're able to go ahead and repair the dead PC that we basically killed using our USB Killer Pro. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this live stream. If you guys did, make sure you guys subscribe and follow to all of our social channels. And we're going to be doing some more live streams like this coming out real soon. I have a bunch of different ideas. I want to do live. I'm thinking maybe moving some type of even PC case reviews to doing them live. I just think it might be a new way to do it. And there's a lot more conversation we can have about different aspects of the case right there on a live stream. So if you guys are interested in something like that, let me know. I'm also gonna have a couple more builds coming up. We can do some more videos like this with the USB killer. And I also have a bunch of like teardowns and stuff like that. Hey, kill it again. I don't know. Maybe should we? Should we kill it again? I don't know. You're kind of tempting me. Maybe for another video. I don't know about today. I'll probably kill it for another video or something like that. Okay, guys. All right. Should we do it? Let's finish it off. And again, just wants to thank you guys. And this one right here is for you guys. I really appreciate it. And after all of our hard work getting the system back up and working, we're going to end up frying another motherboard. So go ahead and 3, 2, 1. Boom. That system is dead. So that was definitely loud, and that system is fried. Unless it is working. Hey, the fan's still running. Did I take it out fast enough? Wait, maybe we didn't kill it. Power is still on. We might have not killed it actually. It's not responding to any of my power input. Okay. Yeah, you guys heard that, right? Hey, it's turning on. Come on. Let me see some display. No? No signal? Alright, turn it on. Hey, the system's turning on this time, which did not happen before. It worked. It survived. Alright. I think we ended there. We ended on the good luck right there. I'll try zapping it another time for a video or something. But that was actually pretty fun. Alright. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I really appreciate all of you guys. And I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Have a great rest of your night.